Does this change now? How's this sound?
Whoa, you sound really weird. And now it's time for us to digest the lowest rung of pop culture so you don't have to. You're tuned in to the all-new CultureCast. Hello everyone and welcome back to the all-new CultureCast. I'm your host Nick, and I have a very special co-host tonight who I'm going to let him introduce himself right now.
Hi, I'm Rick Lucas, a longtime listener, first-time caller, and just excited to hang out and talk about movies and TV shows and whatever else comes up.
Are you truly a long-time listener, or do you mean long-time listener as in we talked about 3 weeks ago and you listened to a episode?
This is true. You do have a lot of episodes. You're over 100, which is just amazing. So I did go back and I did watch a few random ones. Obviously, today's topic is Star Wars. So I watched a lot of the Star Wars ones, and I'm pretty impressed, and they're fun to listen to.
Oh, thank you. We didn't scare you off with our. You'd be like our second listener. I joke. I don't know who actually bothers listening to this thing, but it's fun, so that's why we do it. But
exactly.
I'm glad to have you on the show. We have a mutual friend, which is how we first met years ago, and then periodically would meet up through this mutual friend, Brian, who I know does not listen to the show, but maybe he will now that we're both here. But let's be honest, he probably won't. But
and you know what, we maybe could drag him on and even get him on the show.
If we do a Star Trek episode or something like that, I'm sure he would go on random tangents about it, or Quantum Leap. Just say, hey Brian, tell us about Quantum Leap, and we'll have 3 episodes back to back of him just babbling.
Oh geez, but, I can't join you for the Quantum Leap one, but any Star Trek ones, I'll be there.
But no, I'm glad when we started talking a few weeks ago, and my wife brought up the podcast idea, and you were all gung ho. So I'm like, cool. Always looking for some fresh takes on the show, so that would be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, and your name is Rick, and my name is Nick. That won't be confusing for anyone, so that's fun. But that's okay too. So typically, what we've done in the past, we haven't done this in a while, but for your first episode, I'm going to resurrect it. We usually have segments, and our first segment we do is a little thing called What Have You Been Watching?
What have you been watching?
I'll let you go first. Has there been anything you've been watching of note, good or bad?
We watch a lot of random shows. We watch a lot of shows about murder mystery shows and stuff like that. And but looking into some old school stuff, we started watching The Wonder Years from the very beginning. I never have watched too many. Just kind of random here and there, but fantastic show. Really gets you into that mindset and shows you what that era was like. I believe it's supposed to be the 70s, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And it feels like such a modern show, even though it was shot so long ago, and then it's supposed to take place, a decade even before that, right? Where you have each episode is individually a little story, but then every episode after that connects to the previous one, right? Which I think is more of a modern concept. So just a great show. And besides that, of course, I watched the first episode so far of the Picard series, and I've definitely mixed feelings about it, but overall it was entertaining, so that's good.
I've not watched Picard yet. I'm going to wait till the season's over, and then
probably a good idea.
Get the 1-month subscription to CBS All Access and binge it.
There you go.
Because I can't afford to be paying for a streaming service of one show I'm going to watch. So, especially since they're releasing it week after week like a network show, which I get why they're doing that, but it's frustrating.
And the CBS All Access is not cheap, and especially if you want no ads, it just seems a little crazy. We just don't need another streaming service. So, but that's a whole other topic. But yeah, I would love to watch the whole thing, and maybe come back on and maybe bring Brian on and see what we think.
Yeah. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I think there's 10 episodes in the season they're planning.
Yeah, and I think they've already renewed for a second season. They originally said it was going to be limited, so a lot of people hope that it doesn't go, too far out there.
Yeah, that seems like it's a bad idea. Mostly because I don't know what happens in the show because I haven't seen it, but it seems like they're trying to tell one specific story about Captain Picard and his golden years. And unless the story gets stretched over multiple years, uh, it just seems like, oh, he finished off that adventure, and here he has another one. It's like, do we need this? But we'll see.
I think a lot of it is the nostalgia factor, just seeing the old characters on the screen again after so many years, not thinking that anything would happen like this ever, if the show's good or bad, just being able to see these people that are almost like friends,
Hmm.
after watching so many episodes in the movies, it's just pretty amazing. So just for that, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, and that does seem. I'm excited by that. Even if Brent Spiner's de-aging effect doesn't totally work because you see his like jowls that he's developed over time, but
Uh, he
CGI can do only so much.
he still looks better than Picard these days, so
Oh,
that's good at
that's
least.
true. Okay. As for me, it's funny you mentioned the Wonder Years. I've not been watching that, but I have been watching Cheers, the NBC comedy from the 80s and early 90s, which I watched tangentially because my parents watched it and I was like a little kid at the time. And I kind of wanted to go back because my wife and I, we watch by happenstance Frasier a lot because it happens to be always on TV when we're getting the girls ready for bed or something like that. So it's good just to have on the background. So I kind of went, I'm gonna go back and see how it started. And about done with the first season. I gotta say, the show's good. It still holds up. It may not be like dark comedy as I typically enjoy, but it's good. It's funny. It's genuinely funny show. So I've been enjoying it so far. So
I don't recall watching too much Cheers. I mean, does it really take place all in the bar 100%? They never leave the bar?
at least the first season does. I remember watching the later years when I was a little kid, and they do go to like other locations, but predominantly it takes place in the bar. And this first season has so far completely inside the bar.
Must have been very cost effective to do that.
It reminds me of a almost like a stage play in that regard
Right.
because it's like one set pretty much. I mean, they have like a side set for like an office, but it's like one set and the dialogue zippy and everything's going on. I mean, I'm like I could see them turning this into a play, which somehow I feel like they did turn it into a musical at one point in time, but I could be way wrong on that. Maybe I'm hallucinating as I often do, but I don't know. So.
Interesting. I can't comment on Cheers, but I definitely was a fan of Frasier, and I've seen quite a few episodes. Definitely a great show. Interesting humor they have. I love it.
Hmm. And then besides that, I've just been watching a lot of Scooby Doo because my oldest started watching Scooby Doo, and Netflix has like 600 episodes, so that's
Uh,
nice. I won't have to repeat an episode too frequently. But,
I had no idea they had so many.
well,
How many people can you unmask? I guess.
I guess yeah, I'm exaggerating with the 600, but the little research I've done is like every time one Scooby Doo show ends, a new one begins, and I don't know, they run for like 3 or 4 years or something at a pop, so that
Hmm.
adds up over time.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, so all right. Normally at this time, the Gorehound, who's been in extended absence for quite a while now, because he's busy taking care of his own child, has typically does a man crush of the week. I refuse to do man crush of the week because not for any macho reasons, just because that's the Gorehound's thing,
Hmm.
and I let him stick to that. When my wife is on, she likes to do girl crush of the week to like switch it around a little bit, but I choose to be hands off on that feature because it's not my place to say, and I don't really have any men crushes or anything like that. You're
Right.
welcome to step in and do one if you so choose to, but I will not force that on you.
No, if it's their thing, we'll leave them to it.
Alrighty. So I guess at this time we'll kind of jump into our main topic, which is the mega hit of 2017, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which had no controversy connected to it. It
Yeah.
was just a simple little low budget movie that people saw, and then didn't really talk about it much afterwards. So that's what
Right,
we're going to chat
exactly.
about today.
Exactly.
So you were when I first brought this idea up to you to do The Last Jedi, because we were kind of debating it at of all places a wake, but
Which might be appropriate for the Star Wars franchise at this time. So,
depending on how you view it, I've heard excellent things about The Mandalorian, so who knows? But at least in terms of the big budget films. But uh,
yeah, I think we should almost start off with
yeah.
just kind of, how do you feel about the original Star Wars trilogy? How did you feel about The Force Awakens, and what were your thoughts watching the trailers and the hype kind of leading into The Last Jedi?
Okay. Did you want me to go first on this
Yeah,
or?
yeah, no,
Okay.
please.
Of course, I when I was little, I was really big into Star Wars, as one does as a little boy. Over
Hmm.
time, I've cooled on it. I mean, I had my resurgence. Like, I got into like the prequels just because of I got swept up into the excitement of the prequels.
Right.
They're not good. I don't think they're particularly good. I'll.
And you would call yourself more of a Trekkie than a Star Trek or
Oh
Star
yeah,
Wars person, right?
definitely a bigger Star Trek fan, but I don't have like the animosity towards Star Wars. I
Right.
enjoy Star Wars. I like it. I think it's
They both have their
interesting.
place.
Yeah, it has interesting mythologies. I've read some of the side books that they've had.
Oh,
So
nice.
I like it. I like it for what it is and everything. But like, if I had to choose, like, oh, a Star Trek movie's on or a Star Wars movie, I'm more likely to pick the Star Trek one. But I like the original trilogy. I think it's good. It still holds up. Um, I am annoyed with the special editions, which I've gotten more annoyed with them over time just because of all the unnecessary stuff they threw into it.
Yeah.
The and usually it's like most of the stuff, it's not that big of a deal, but like the weird CGI in the Return of the Jedi of that band that plays, like what is going
Hmm.
on with that? Empire seems to have gotten away okay with most of the stuff.
Right.
The original, the first Star Wars movie with, and I'm going on a tangent here, so I apologize, where they put like all the crappy CGI in there. Like there's that one scene where they're going to, these are not the droids you're looking for, where this giant dinosaur creature just walks right in front of all the action. It's like,
Hmm.
why? Why do they do that? But I guess I'm annoyed that like if they need to, I wish they could release the unaltered versions. I mean, those would sell like hotcakes. And they say they can't do it for a variety of reasons. I don't know if I fully believe that, but anyway, off topic. The prequels, I said I got swept up in them. I'll I have fond memories of Phantom Menace only because of the nostalgic value of what was going on during that time.
Right.
As a movie, it's terrible. I don't think the other two prequels are that much better. The Force Awakens, I overall enjoyed. Nice little throwback film. It was fun, whatever. It's fine. And then I didn't have really major any opinions going into Last Jedi. I mean, it looked like a Star Wars movie. I don't know. It was a thing that was there.
I
So,
see.
what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have some similar feelings. So, I mean, so I was born in 1982. So, by the time I grew up, Star Wars was something in the past. Very exciting, something mysterious. We watched them, randomly on VHS. When the special editions came out, that was around the time we started turning into teenagers and started really getting into Star Wars. So I went to the theaters, rewatched some of these movies, bought them, watched them in order, understood what was happening on a deeper level, really, really got into them. I mean, they were amazing. And I actually went, for this to prepare for the show, I went back and I watched episode 4, 5, 6, and The Force Awakens.
Yeah, you did
And
way
then,
more research on this than I was expecting.
right, because I mean, I do have strong feelings about The Last Jedi, and we'll get into that, but I wanted to get my mind set on, what is Star Wars, and how does it feel, and how does each episode change things, and really, really put some perspective on it, I guess. But I agree with you that, especially the first one, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, are genius movies. But when you watch them, you can tell the parts that were added in by George Lucas. Little bits were like it'll be a CG robot and they'll bump each other's heads like cartoons.
Yeah.
Or I know that they did shoot, like, say, for example, the Jabba part where in A New Hope they go to leave and Jabba's there trying to get his money. I mean, this is an example of them trying to put that CG in. The CG doesn't look very good, and honestly, I think it's a better mystery when you don't know what Jabba looks like, but you hear about him in A New Hope. You hear about him in Empire Strikes Back. Han's constantly, like those 2 episodes, he's trying to get back to Jabba to give him his money because he knows his life is in danger. But he gets caught, and then you see him in Return of a Jedi. But it kind of spoils that whole kind of mystery if you see him so early. So you can tell the things that George Lucas kind of changed. But genius movies, and I guess with the prequels, it was so much hype because in our lifetime we had never had a new Star Wars movie, and the graphics were amazing. And you do forget that in the prequels the lightsaber fights are not super aggressive or fast. They're kind of weak a little bit.
You mean the originals, right?
The original 3, yeah. But when episode 1, 2, and 3 came out, the fighting, even though it's so choreographed and looks almost like dancing, but the lightsabers are so fast, the fight scenes are so quick. It was very interesting. So I did enjoy episode 1 parts of it, but obviously there are parts that are really bad, and I really cannot watch episode 2 or episode 3 all the way through anymore. It's very difficult. And then to finish up the Force Awakens, I thought it was an amazing movie. Amazing. I mean, there's some flaws in it, of course. And I listened to your podcast and definitely agree with some of your points, but I love the characters. I love the pacing, the action, the lightsaber scenes. I mean, it was just, there's a lot of really genius parts of it. I thought it was a great movie. I don't think they could have done too much better.
Yeah, there was definitely, with The Force Awakens, it was definitely tricky because they had, after the stink of the prequels kind of left a lot of people sour on Star Wars movies. And they were in a difficult position where they had to, like, make a movie that would show that Disney could, I know when Disney bought it, people were skeptical as well. Had to show a movie that Disney, like, could make a Star Wars movie and make it successful. So they did a lot of like callbacks to the original trilogy to make it, seem more like, yes, comfort food almost. And then, they can go off and do their whatever they want in the subsequent movies, which kind of did, which we'll talk about here, I'm sure, shortly. But
right. And the whole fact that, the whole beginning where they're like trying to get this map, and the map is very similar to the Death Star plans that were stolen. I didn't mind that was a callback like that. I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was done well. I think I could have done without the Star Killer base. Was a little ridiculous. Again, we have a Death Star, this huge Death Star, and it can blow up multiple planets instead of one. And now we got to fly in and blow it up again. I mean, it was that was a little bit more of a backdrop for a story that was actually happening on the surface of that weapon on the planet, which is a part that I liked when they're in the forest and they're fighting Kylo Ren and the place is falling apart and a huge chasm opens up and splits them up so they can escape, live to fight another day. I thought all those parts were amazing, but I agree that the blowing up of the third Death Star was maybe a bit too much. I could see a flaw there. And my other issue is the whole thing about them the entire time trying to find Luke. They do mention that Luke has escaped to the island because he's just basically walked away from everything after Kylo went to the dark side, and at the very end they're standing there, Rey and Luke, awkwardly handing over the lightsaber, and basically it makes it difficult for the next episode. Like, where do you start, right? Because between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, there was, a 2-3 year gap So you can kind of fill in like, hey, there's a lot of things that have happened. A lot of people have grown, a lot of people have changed. The struggle between the rebellion and the empire has changed. You can't really have this with this. You almost have to start the next episode immediately after the previous episode. There's no time for anybody to grow or change.
Yeah, I mean that didn't bother me so much, I guess, because I mean a lot of movie sequels do that, I guess. And I mean at this point Disney knew this movie, good or bad, was going to make a bajillion dollars, so they were definitely going to make a sequel. So they
Right.
they had some assurances that this we'll do this in the sequel. So and normally I'm against that sort of mentality, like, oh, save this for the sequel. Well, you don't know if you're going to get a sequel. Star Wars, you're going to get a sequel.
Right.
Even if they want to make episode 10 right now, after people are lukewarm against Rise of Skywalker, they can do it if they wanted to, because that movie made bank and it's a Star Wars movie. It's a license to print money. But I don't know, that doesn't bother me, I guess. I mean, one of the things that always sort of irked me in the earlier Star Wars movies is, and you see this more so at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, and especially during the prequels, was that the characters have undergone all of these changes off screen. Like at the end of Empire,
Right.
Luke's like this untrained knucklehead who doesn't know what he's doing. Beginning of Jedi, he's a full-on trained Jedi Knight. We missed something there. And then the prequels, like the first one, there's 10 years in between the two, and then there's another 3, and suddenly Anakin and Obi-Wan are best buddies. Like we didn't see that friendship evolve the way it probably could have. Because like in episode 2, Anakin and Obi-Wan are like have like a father-son relationship where the son's being a twerp and the father's like, you don't get it, Dad. And then in the next one, they're like, BFFs forever. We're joking while we're being shot at and trying to save the Chancellor. It's like, so I didn't mind that this Last Jedi picked up immediately where Force Awakens left off. But,
Right, that's true, and I understand that, like like Back to the Future, for example, all three movies are back to back, right? There's no time gap really. But I think that with Star Wars, it's such a big epic war, that's going on over like multiple years. That you sometimes need to have a little bit of a time gap so you can say, okay, let's catch up with our characters a little bit later and see what's going on. But I can see how both ways could work.
yeah. Well, regardless, I don't know how much the sequel trilogy was planned out. Probably not much, but at least between the first 2 films, there was, I guess, some semblance of synergy, because while Rian Johnson was writing the movie, he was talking with J.J. Abrams. And so the 2 movies were kind of like trying to flow into one another. So I guess that's one positive. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of The Last Jedi. Rick, what's your overall feeling of The Last Jedi?
Well, let me start here by just describing how I felt walking into The Last Jedi. So, of course, I came off The Force Awakens. I thought, with some flaws, I thought it was an amazing movie, very entertaining. Stood right up there with the other 3 and from the original trilogy. And watching the trailers looked amazing. I didn't know who Rian Johnson was. But the trailers made it look like it was going to be an excellent sequel, and I was just so looking forward to it. And I was actually on vacation in Disney World when it came out.
Happiest place on earth.
And I was not going to see it during our vacation because my wife is really not a Star Wars fan, not a movie fan, but we were in downtown Disney and they have a huge theater there. And I walked past it. I'm like, you know what? I have to go see this movie. You go shop or do whatever. I have to go watch this movie. So I went and I watched it myself. And I honestly was so shocked by some of the things that happened that I couldn't. Now I see some good stuff to it, but I was so shocked by it that it wasn't what I was expecting or what I thought I really wanted, that I walked out and I was extremely depressed. And it basically ruined my day, and I'm forbidden from watching movies, new movies on vacations now. So
Thanks a lot, Last Jedi.
I know. So I was very, very distraught at first. After watching the next movie, Rise of Skywalker, which I won't really talk much about, but that one I also thought had major problems, and it actually made me appreciate The Last Jedi a little bit more. So my opinion has actually increased since I've completed the saga.
Interesting.
Mm,
Okay. I my initial thoughts on Last Jedi was, well, first of all, I should tell you this. We went to go see it opening weekend, and I'm convinced the theater that we saw it in, their projection bulb was either they something was going on with the projector because I felt the screen was way too bright.
mm,
So I felt some things look kind of washed out, almost like if you're watching something on a projector and someone opens up a door and like the other light source is kind of washing out, that's what
right.
like I felt, and I was like distracted by that like the whole movie. Like this can't be how it's looking. And subsequent times when I've seen it on either on TV or Netflix, I was right because it looks much clearer. But in any event,
Interesting.
I I I think Last Jedi has a lot of issues with it, but I didn't mind it. I liked a lot of the things that they were attempting to do, which I thought Force Awakens was better, but I thought, it was a Star Wars movie. It was fine. I think there are a couple of storytelling structural issues the movie has. There's a lot of kind of weird things that goes off in these bizarre tangents. But I mean, I liked it well enough. I was surprised to see all the hate the movie was getting online and elsewhere,
Hmm.
but because I didn't necessarily agree with all of it, and some of it just seemed a little perplexing, and some of it was just outright stupid. With the how dare we have a movie with a female lead clutch the pearls? But that was sarcasm, in case you didn't pick up on that. But
Well, I have no problem with Ray. I love Ray. I think that she's a great character. I think she is a little bit overpowered. I think everyone is a little bit overpowered in this new trilogy. It makes it more interesting uh, to see new force powers and what people can do, but as people get more powerful, I think it begins to introduce plot holes or questions of, well, why can't the person do this or why can't they do that? Like, for example, in Force Awakens, Kylo Ren was able to literally freeze Rey in place and then make her
mhm,
faint. Now, you could make the argument of, like, well, later on she became more powerful. Maybe she became powerful because when Kylo tried to, reach into her mind, it kind of unlocked something. And now she's not susceptible to this freezing or fainting anymore. But things like that come up where they show a force power and then you wonder why isn't it used again. You know, I don't
I,
think Rey
I
was.
can get that.
I don't think she was really overpowered too much in the Force Awakens because I watched it and I checked, and the only two times she used force powers was she was able to escape imprisonment by doing a Jedi mind trick, and she had trouble with it at first, and was able to get somebody to unlock her and open the door, and she was able to leave. And then at the very end was a big emotional finish. Was Kylo Ren looks like he's pulling the lightsaber, having trouble. It flies past him, and Rey grabs it. Those are the only two times that she used force powers that I know of. But in this new episode, again, there's no gap between them. She is trained by Luke a little bit, but not
Hmm.
super great. And she seems like her powers are just growing and growing and growing to the point where she's able to move like multiple rocks. Yeah, we never saw Luke really doing this type of power, after all his training.
No, yeah, I'll give you that. It does open up, not questionable, but like, well, how come they don't do that? How come they don't do this when you add more and more powers in like that? Like one of the big things in the prequel trilogies when they introduce the force power of running really fast,
Hmm.
and they never use it in the most opportune times where they should be using it.
Right.
But
Now, to
yeah,
be
I mean,
fair, like that power is similar to, I mean, Luke did fall into that area in the Cloud City where he was supposed to be frozen in carbonite, but he jumps up really high, and that was just
yes.
like a force fast move or whatever. But you're right, I mean, they never used it really too much.
But yeah, I guess I didn't think of it like that. The stuff that she's doing. I mean, it isn't too crazy. I feel like moving rocks and I'm trying to think what else she used in the movie in Last Jedi. I can't think of what she did. But yeah. Anyway,
I guess my thoughts are like, they don't. Star Wars has done kind of a poor job of explaining really what the Force is and how do certain people have more Force powers than others. I know there was like midi-chlorians were described once, and then each episode like talks about a tiny bit, and it's not that really that important, but they always talk about this balance and Anakin's supposed to bring balance, and why is the Force unbalanced, and why is he going to bring balance, and you know there's kind of this undefined mythos, I guess, about it. And I mean, my only idea is that since so many Jedi are gone, and really all it is down to Luke shut himself off from the Force, right? So he's not even communicating with the Force. So really, all that's left at the moment that we know of is Kylo Ren. And we know in this movie, Snoke talks about how the Force is balancing itself out, and that as darkness rises, light rises to meet it. So Rey might be receiving the same amount of Force abilities as Kylo Ren in order to balance him out.
Oh, it's an interesting way to
My
explore.
theory to describe what's happening.
There was one theory given to Rey that I really liked, and it was too good of a theory for it to actually happen in the movies. In that Rey was, because like there's a whole mystery of Rey, what's Rey? That Rey was the reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. That the Force became unbalanced, so the Force is like, okay, we need another Anakin. So virgin birth, here's a new Anakin Skywalker. And that there would have been like a parallel that now Luke has to train his quote-unquote father to, it all becomes circular again.
That would have been great, because that's another mythos that they don't really explain too well, is that Anakin came from a virgin birth. How did it happen? Why did it happen? And, why did it not happen again? And it's just a weird point that they put in the prequels that never really became of anything,
Right. I mean, it's implied that the Palpatine somehow manipulated it, but I can't get behind that, because that's a lot of, even for Star Wars, that's a lot of coincidences that Palpatine would happen to impregnate a woman who happened to be on a remote planet, who happened to be stolen upon Jedi, who happened to have their ship break down, who happened to be traveling that. Like, come on.
Right, exactly.
Right at the time when Palpatine needed it to happen. It's like, even for Star Wars, which hinges on coincidences, that's a tough pill to swallow. But anyway, let's reel us back in here about the Last Jedi. So what were your problems with it? Like you said, you walked out, ruining your day. What specifically about it ruined your day?
So I guess I wasn't prepared for how much they were going to kind of change certain core aspects of Star Wars. Here's an example. So right at the very beginning, Hux, he's a general, admiral, a lieutenant, something on the what's their new names?
The First Order.
The First Order, right. So in The Force Awakens, he is never a joke. He's always serious. He's supposed to be scary. And in the majority of the Star Wars movies, and when I'm talking about, like, let's start from the original movies, the bad guys are generally not a joke, right? They're serious and they're deadly. And we all know that the Empire, the First Order, the Stormtroopers, it's an analogy, right, to like Nazi Germany and the Nazi foot soldiers, right? So it's a serious thing. These guys are deadly. Hux becomes a complete joke, and I watched the other movies and looked at the humor. The humor was between C-3PO and R2-D2, or Han Solo would say a joke. They would say jokes. People weren't themselves jokes all the time. I just feel like those movies did a really good job of balancing that humor, and humor is, I think, an important part of Star Wars. But the humor that starts off The Last Jedi is a very, I guess, sophomoric joke.
It's
And
like
a
your mama.
character, right, exactly. And a character who was not a joke in the previous movie is now a complete joke. So there's inconsistency, and it's not consistent with how Star Wars in general uses humor. So that was my first part where I'm like, something's wrong,
It
right?
felt like more of a Marvel kind of gag.
Exactly, exactly. And I have no problem with that type of humor. I love the Marvel movies, and that it makes sense for those movies. It doesn't make sense here, right? So we need to have consistency. I think is the first part. And then next, I think the whole thing where they have these bombers coming in slowly. I mean, that part wasn't too bad, and they're trying to like bomb this ship wasn't too horrible. I think my next part that I really had a problem was with Holdo. So she's basically
Hmm.
the one who on the
Purple hair.
rebellion side kind of takes over after a lot of the generals have been killed, and she immediately, won't tell anybody what the plan is. And that's fine if it's a secret, or I know that Poe got demoted, so maybe he's not authorized to hear what the plan is. Um, or maybe they could have said, like, there's a spy on board, so we can't tell anybody because it could leak. We don't know who the spy is. They could have had a plot of, who is the spy. Um, but she was just so incredibly rude to Poe. I mean, way more rude than an officer should be. She should have just said, "I can't tell you. I'm sorry. It's classified at the moment."
Let me
She's just so rude.
can I interject there for a second?
Please.
They had to do that because if they didn't, there wouldn't be a movie.
I
And
know.
I'm not defending it because I agree with you. It's like this all could have been solved in one little sentence. Poe, shut up. You're an idiot. We're working on it. You're not on our top brass anymore. So go sit in the corner and pout later. I mean, if she wanted to still be rude and tell him to like just chillax. We got this. But yeah, like that it's like you had to make the characters. There wouldn't be a movie if you didn't have the characters. I don't know, act like that, which is frustrating because then it's the movie leading the characters, not the characters leading the movie, and that's a flaw in any movie that you do.
Right, and I totally get it. If I can go back to the original trilogy for just a moment, because I think it's important, is that one of the things that I noticed was, and again, these are all fantasy movies, and certain things have to happen, or for certain plot points, to have a fun movie, right? But there's a certain level of disbelief that you can handle before it becomes a little ridiculous. Like, so
Hmm.
I was watching The Empire Strikes Back, for example, and that movie is so genius that it really feels like a real military war operation, right? There's nothing that really happens that I can think of where you're like, well, if they would have just done this, everything would have been fine, or why did they make this decision? Everything made sense. Like from
Hmm.
let me just talk about the very beginning of the movie really quick. So you have this idea that the Empire is sending out all these probes. They're trying to find where the hidden base is. One of the probes lands, finds the hidden base, sends the data back. Darth Vader's like, "This is where it is. I know it. I can feel it. We have to go here." His general in charge doesn't believe him. They do hyperspace too close to the planet. They're able to detect this, and they turn on their shield around their base. So now the Empire is forced to land outside the shield and walk in underneath the shield, and they're trying to escape, and they're shooting up, ion blast in order to get past. I mean, everything that's happening all makes sense from a military level, and what's happening and why, and Han Solo's ship is half apart because he was trying to fix it. Now it's an emergency. We got to get out of here. They're trying to put it back together. And, Darth Vader lands and he's walking in, and they're able to get the Millennium Falcon up and out of the hangar just as Darth Vader walks in. I mean, there's nothing in there that's like, well, somebody made a bad decision, or we had to do this weird thing in order for the plot to work. Everything made sense, what everybody was doing and why it was happening. But I just feel like this is a poor decisions they're having characters make in order to make their story work in a way they're trying to make work. You got to think of the characters first, I think, sometimes, and then come up with a story, almost, not the other way around.
No, I agree. I think you're on the money with that one. Yeah, I mean, I mean, if that was the only problem with The Last Jedi, then whatever. But this movie is kind of rife with them.
What did you think about the whole fuel running low concept? I mean, they basically were doing like a World War II of like, a submarine, following another submarine or battleship following another battleship, you
Well,
know.
here's the thing about that. On one hand, I like the idea that it's this really slow chase. I
Hmm.
think that was kind of a neat idea because it hasn't been done in Star Wars before.
Right.
But at the same time, Star Wars has never been real science,
True.
and it's difficult to buy into that idea when you have these fighter jets zipping across the galaxy in the meantime. Like
Right.
you have Finn and Rose zip off to Canto Blight, the casino planet, and make it
Hmm.
back. And like you mean to tell me that the First Order didn't have fighters that can overtake the other ship to shoot it down? Like it doesn't mash well with one another. And it's like I like the idea. I feel that would have worked better in like a Star Trek sort of movie or show
Right.
because Star Trek has always tried to veer more towards realism. I mean, with a grain of salt, let me put realism in quotes, but they try to fake it as much as they could.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like I like the idea of it, but it felt weird. If Finn and Rose didn't go to Canto Blight because they shouldn't have gone to Canto Blight because that was a stupid storyline, then I don't think I would have noticed the issue, honestly. But there were all these other weird things going on, so
It goes back again to, my thoughts about Empire Strikes Back, where we go through that movie and all the military tactics that they do all make sense. But here they don't. I mean, why don't they do a hyperspace jump in front of these rebel ships and then destroy them from the front?
mhm.
Why can't they send out ships that can overtake them and blow them up? I mean, it doesn't make any sense what's happening, and it's almost like, okay, we want to have this type of story where it's a slow chase. Let's just change all the rules that have been established. Let's just throw out any of the actual military strategies that they would use in order to try to have this story, and hope that the audience is just like, okay, this is just like an adventure movie. Let's not think about it. You know what I mean? But it's more than that. You know what I mean? Star Wars is important, and has many movies that describe rules in this universe, and these rules don't make sense.
Do you feel it would have been stronger had the resistance or the rebels, or whatever they call themselves, made it to the uh, not ice planet like early on, and they just hold up there while the First Order is like searching planet by planet for them?
Possibly. I haven't given much thought on what I would do instead, but I just know that some of these things just don't seem to follow some of the rules that, like, here's another example. So I have kind of a list of, the good things and bad things I was thinking of the movie as I was watching it. Another one that happened was there's a large explosion on the deck of the rebel ships, and a bunch of the generals are sucked out, including Leia.
Hmm.
And I've heard that Disney was the one that forced Rian Johnson to basically have her use force powers to bring herself back in. Leia really hasn't shown force powers in the past. I understand it's been a long time and she was force sensitive. Just the fact that she gets blown out of there and somehow is able to survive, or puts a force shield around here, or whatever happens, it was just so, I don't know, corny, just too much, too much. And then, I forget what his name is, but who's the alien? He's very famous for saying it's a trap in Return of the Jedi, and he was in this movie.
Admiral Akbar?
He gets sucked out. You don't even see him again. You don't even see him get sucked out. He's just mentioned that he's killed, and he's just, removed from the universe in such a, unceremonious way. So I thought that was kind of poor. And I thought Leia coming back in with using force powers was ridiculous.
See, that didn't bother me. Leia using the Force powers, because to me that made sense. Like she probably would have gotten trained by Luke. I have something. Again, that A lot of people didn't like that. I don't know. That was one of the things that did not bother me. I it's hmm,
I don't mind
hmm,
her
hmm.
having force powers, but just getting sucked out into the vacuum of space, somehow surviving and pulling herself back in was, even if that was okay, let's say the rules are this is technically possible. I just didn't like it. It just seemed too corny. I mean, the force and force powers should be a little more believable or a little more subtle, you know?
I'm
It was too
surprised they
extreme.
I'm surprised they didn't use that to a way to, because Carrie Fisher had died at this point, to like, we'll just have Leia die this way. But maybe they thought,
Right.
no,
Exactly.
that'd be more disrespectful. I don't know. Um,
And
because her death.
she is needed later in the movie, so I mean, maybe there could have been something else they could have done, but yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that. I also later in the movie, Yoda's Force Ghost comes and uses lightning to strike the tree that contains the Jedi books. They've
Mhm.
never before shown any Force Ghosts to be able to interact, and they actually say that they're not allowed to really intervene. I mean, not that he's intervening in the course of history or something like that, but I just didn't like that they're again bending the rules and saying, okay, now Force Ghosts can interact with the environment and change things, and say, okay, well, why doesn't Yoda come down and start lightning striking the First Order? So I didn't appreciate that. And my biggest complaint was I just didn't like the way Luke acted. As far
Ah,
as I understand that, this whole thing was Kylo Ren and it destroyed, all these Jedi and he basically was discouraged and ran away, but I just don't think Luke Skywalker would act like that. He was so optimistic, and he was the one who kept saying to everybody, Darth Vader's still, they're still good in him, they're still good in him. And Darth Vader was way more evil or consumed by the dark side than Kylo Ren was. I mean, Kylo Ren, this entire trilogy, is constantly showing he's doing things that he maybe could be more so in the light. I mean, he hesitates killing his dad, he hesitates killing his mom, Leia, and somehow, Luke's like, hope is all lost. There's no way we can change him back. And I know he did that to, I guess, what he says, subvert expectations and, make a surprise that, Luke, is a hermit and staying here. And at the end, of course, he comes back and does help. So he kind of has a change of heart and a change of character. But I still just wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, it's hard for him to them to show up on the island and be like, Luke, we need you, and him be like, okay, where can I fight? And he comes and joins. Now you got all these people with all these force powers, and it's just way too much. We should be concentrating on the new character. So I don't know what else they could have done, but I just feel like he was too. I mean, he just seems so out of it. The way he was like drinking that milk from that creature and stuff, and just so negative on everything. When he tried to train Ray for a little bit, he was so condescending. Like she puts her hand out and he slaps it with
the leaf.
the leaf and tickles her hand. I mean that type of humor is funny. I mean for a Marvel movie, but not in a Star Wars movie. He should have been more serious in the training. If you go back and you watch the trailers, and I know the trailers aren't what the movie is, but you hear Luke kind of doing that training, and that's what I was more expecting was like some serious. I can't go back and help you, but I can train you and guide you from here, or something like that.
I think we're going to have a disagreement on this point
Hmm.
because I felt Luke was completely in character given the circumstances that presented him.
Well, I
Luke
know
in the
Mark Hamill would disagree with you.
Well, what does Mark Hamill know? Um, I know more than Mark Hamill.
Oh,
You could
okay.
you can quote me on that. Here I have a couple of thoughts on that. Everyone's expecting Luke to be like, or to be like, Luke, I need your help. We gotta fight the First Order. And Luke's like, fuck yeah, I'll get my lightsabers. Let's go. And he'll have a trucker accent just like that. And he would go and beat up the First Order and all of that. Or he would train Rey, and then they'd be both powerful, and they'd go and they'd single-handedly take down Snoke. To me, that would be boring. That's what we would be expecting, And then it would lead people to be like, well, this is just a ripoff of Empire Strikes Back, the way they were complaining how Force Awakens was a ripoff of the original Star Wars. Luke has always been one who has rushed a decision, stopped himself before he got too far, and he always sort of leaped before looking. He was very, very concerned with Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, Ben, whatever you want to call him. And he had a moment of weakness where he was like, you know what? He's just as evil as Vader. Why don't I just cut him down? And he paused, and he's like, no, this is stupid. But he paused not soon enough because Kylo Ren was like, hell no, I'm not dealing with this. And crushed the hut and presumably killed his other students and fully went over to the dark side. And that was a huge failure for Luke because he jumped into his doubts and he waited too long to circle back from them. And I think because of that, it crushed him, which is why he cut himself off, became jaded, and everything else. Like, to me, I think Luke's job was to restart the Jedi. He was the last Jedi at the end of Return of the Jedi, and he was going to, like, the Jedi will rise again. I've defeated the Emperor. I can do no wrong. I'm great. This is going to be good. And he failed miserably. And he just like, screw it, I'm done. And as Luke later on goes, he talks about how, the Jedi and the Sith and all of them are just, it's all ridiculous. It's all nonsense. Which, of course, was clearly allegorical to Star Wars in itself. It's 100%. Like, Luke was, I don't know, George Lucas, where he just didn't care anymore, and Rey represented the people who love Star Wars, and Kylo Ren represented the people who were sick of Star Wars. And eventually Luke's like, you know what? Let people like what they like. I'm going to help Rey, or at least help her escape. I don't know. Having that version of Luke is way more interesting than one that's going to be the superhero. And I wonder if part of the reason people were so thrown by that is that we've had so much Star Wars materials in terms of comics and books and video games that show Luke as this everlasting guy who saves the galaxy every other day, that this showed the complete opposite of that. And people were like, wait a second, this is not what we read and all that other stuff that doesn't count anymore. I don't know. Like, that was, to me, the strongest aspect, that Luke was like, just gave up on the Jedi and they gave up on the Force. I really like that take on it.
I hear what you're saying, and I respect what you're saying. I think, and again, some of my concerns are the whole story about what happened with Kylo Ren and how did he turn to the dark side, and how Luke had that moment of weakness. That story element was also created by Rian Johnson in that same movie. So basically, everything, we didn't know anything about Luke besides he was on an island because of Kylo Ren. Nothing else we knew. So Rian Johnson basically built all that stuff. And to me, the fact that Darth Vader was evil in all the movies, I mean, he killed women, children, crushed people, with his hand, physically and with the Force, choked people. He never showed any sort of light side tendencies, except at the very end when he kills the Emperor and Luke's like, I knew the whole time. I've been trying to change you. I didn't change you to the dark side. But then, excuse me. But then he's in this little, shack with Kylo, and he's looking at him, and he's like, well, this moody teenager seems to have, evil thoughts, yet he has done nothing bad yet. I'm gonna possibly kill him right now. It just seems like such a huge leap,
Well, I'll give you that. I mean, we only know the story from what Kylo Ren has said and what Luke has said. Like, and it's only like snippets to get the audience up to speed. One of the things I feel was feeling was off about the whole trilogy was that I feel like we missed a movie in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And I feel like that could have been its own film, Kylo Ren's Fall of the Dark Side, where they could have fleshed it out more, why Luke had his doubts. Maybe there are other things going on influencing his decision. Hey, maybe Snoke even was putting a bug in his ear. I don't know. But I think it would have been better if
Kylo would have just switched over to the dark side, got a lot of other people convinced to switch over to the dark side. That's how we got the Knights of Ren, and overpowered the rest of the Jedi Academy, killing everybody, and thought Luke was dead. And then Luke thought he was a failure and then ran away. Do you know what I mean? I don't like this whole, well, I was gonna stab him, but then I decided not to, but he woke up and he thinks I was gonna stab him, just like he says, she says thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there could have been other ways. I guess, long story short, that didn't bother me. It still feels somewhat in character. Like, Luke was about ready to strike down his dad and Jedi before he stopped himself.
It's true.
So, like, I see that as almost like a bit of a parallel. Should Luke have been more mature about? Maybe, but at the same time, like, again, part.
Let's look at another Jedi too. Let's look at Obi-Wan, right? I mean, he loses his master Qui-Gon Jinn. He loses Anakin to the dark side. Padme gets killed. He's there with the entire Jedi is wiped out. He's got to go into hiding, right? And then he's now hanging on a desert planet for 30 years or whatever it is before he finally runs into Luke again. And then they decide to run off an adventure, and then he like basically lets himself get killed. That entire time, all that stuff that happened, he never thought about turning to the dark side or anything like that. So a lot of bad things happened to him too, and he never made any changes.
Well, he was also playing the waiting game.
That's true.
Like, he knew one day, like, all right, I'm going to creep on this kid one day, and he's going to be the new Jedi. So I'll just chill here, get my Netflix account, watch all of Wonder Years and Cheers, and when I'm done with that, Luke will be ready. But
I guess my last bad part of the Last Jedi I thought was the fact that it felt like the Last Jedi was almost like part 3 in the trilogy, right? They ended up they kill Snoke, who is supposed to be like a major bad guy, major villain. They kill Phasma. They
I don't know why they even brought her back.
Luke comes back, gets killed. I mean, it just seems like they had no Knights of Ren at all. It just seems like so many things happened where ideas that could have been good or carried on to the next movie to create like kind of more of a climax for the next movie all got wiped away. And it really only left the next movie with the story of Rey versus Kylo. And maybe that's a good thing because those are such strong characters, and maybe the next movie really should just concentrate on those two characters and get rid of all the noise, right? But I just feel like it doesn't make a good 3-part arc.
No, I can get behind that. It definitely has a feel like a finality to it, because even though they don't destroy the First Order, there's the idea that, like, hey, we've brought hope to the universe, and this war may go on, we'll still end up, bringing hope or whatever. It does have that sort of, like, it's open-ended but still ended.
Well, I guess that's my other concern is that, like, in the original trilogy, it seemed like there were so many rebels. It seemed like there wasn't just one base, but maybe multiple bases, because they always talk about how there's, like, abandoned bases we can go hide in. And it seems like it's this large army almost. And they win at the end of the Return of Jedi. What has happened in the last 30 years? And I understand, like, it's a parallel between World War I ends, and they Germany signs an armistice, and then so many years later, all of a sudden, we've got Germany is amassing and taking over all these areas and not being stopped until it's too late, right?
Right.
But still, there's England, there's America, there's all these countries, right? Where is everybody who's supposed to be the resistance? And they have enough fighters to destroy an entire planet in The Force Awakens, but by the time we get to the second movie, the numbers have dwindled down. Now the entire fleet is just running slowly and running out of fuel away from the First Order. And then by the end of the movie, they actually mention a number. They're like, it's down to us 40 people. I mean, it's almost like it's completely, what has happened to Resistance? I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I need to rewatch Force Awakens to see if they go into that, because it does seem like the Resistance dwindled down really fast. I know they lost a ton of people at the beginning of The Last Jedi, so maybe that was part of it. But
Now let's
Yeah,
not
I
talk
don't
about
know.
all the bad things. There are things that I do like about the movie, so we can definitely talk about that.
Okay.
To give our final ratings.
Right. Well, I wanted to touch on something. What my biggest issue with the movie was,
Oh, sure.
if you don't mind. This movie has let me back up here. The movies in general have a three-act structure. First
Mhm.
act sets up your problems, you meet your antagonist, you get the feel, lay of the land. Second act, your characters are interacting with the problems, they have ups and downs, they're getting closer to solving the issue, and then they get to their lowest point where all hope seems lost. Third
Mm.
act, they rebound from that, uh, defeat whatever problem they're having, and then wrap up anything left in the movie. This movie has what I call the fourth act problem, in which the
Mm.
movie is leading to a seems like an actual conclusion, and then you realize, wait, there's still 30 minutes left, and it goes to another conclusion. Like the movie felt like it was wrapping up when Rey
Mm.
and Kylo Ren were in the chamber and they're fighting against the guards, and then Kylo Ren's like, "Come with me, and we'll save the universe." And Rey's like, "Psh, nah." I mean, it felt like that was the climax of the movie, and then we have this whole other set piece with
Luke.
on the planet, which was cool in itself, with Luke coming and kind of being like a smart aleck. I like that part, but it just seemed like this should be the start of the next movie. I mean, what's happening here? I mean, it just I don't like it when movies do that, because it feels like they try to stuff too much in the film, or early in the film they stuff too much that it becomes bloated. Part of the bloatness I feel is in that Canto Blight section, which
Mhm.
amounted to nothing. I mean, I don't mind them going on a little side mission, but like it goes this really weird detour where Rose wants to save the horses, and it's like,
Right.
okay, like I would have been fine with that if it was like, hey, we need to get out of here, we need a distraction, let's just let these horses go through. But they like pounded the point home that like we're being good by saving the horses. It's like, really, you're worried about like all your friends being destroyed up in space, and this is your focus right now? It's like,
I totally agree.
we can come back for these horses later. Let's save the resistance. Then we'll talk about the horses. But uh, and like the whole DJ character who was supposed to like help him, it's like, but then he betrays him, and then he just disappears. I mean, it's like a waste of Benicio del Toro. I mean, I don't mind them going on a little side adventure, but even if they're supposed to fail at it, like give it some, make it count, make it meaningful in some way. I don't know. It seemed very bizarre.
Well, to play devil's advocate, and I agree, I didn't like it, and I'll explain my point as well. But to play as devil's advocate, you could say that The Last Jedi is a story about failure and learning from failure and overcoming it, or redemption, or something like that, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Luke failed and yet comes back at the end. Uh, the two characters, Rose and Finn, go off to try to do something that's gonna help. This whole plot where they need to be able to get on the ship to turn something off so they can warp jump, and that totally fails.
It's
Uh,
hyperspace jump. Get it
hyper,
right.
yes,
Star
but
Trek nerd.
exactly. But the whole thing fails. But I guess they, try to help later by. It gets even more convoluted with this whole thing where Finn's like, going to sacrifice himself to save the people he loves, but
Hmm.
gets bumped out of the way by
That was dumb.
Rose and says, "We're only gonna win by saving the things that we love." It's like, what do you think I was trying to do? Now you basically, instead of losing one life, we're all dead, right? I mean, it didn't make. It was again the horse type of thing. I thought, I thought that Rose was one of the worst Star Wars characters we've ever had. I thought she was annoying, didn't really help the plot at all. I was not a fan. I think we have too many characters to explore already. We don't need another one. So I think the movie could have done without her.
Hmm.
And I agree that when I get into the parts I like, I actually really liked the Snoke and the fighting at the end, and I know it was very similar to Return of the Jedi of like, hey, look out the window, everyone's dying, come over to the dark side. But it was really, really well done. And when Kylo and Rey team up, and you think, okay, great, now Kylo's on the light side, but he's like, I'm gonna take over, join me, and they have to then fight themselves. That seemed like the climax of the movie, and even though I wanted Snoke to carry over to the next
Hmm.
movie, I think that if they would have put that fight at the very, very end, I think that would have worked a lot better. So I agree with you.
I don't mind Rose too much. I think she and Finn had a good little chemistry together as I love Finn. He's probably my favorite character in the new series because he's such a coward, but
Hmm.
he always ends up doing the right thing, and I think it's refreshing to see that. Like the minute he has the chance to run, he'll run, but then he always comes back. Like I liked him and Rose's chemistry. I like the idea of Rose that she wanted to honor her sister who just died by being more of a bigger member of the resistance and helping out. Um, but like the execution of her character, not her actually dying, I think was very much mishandled.
Yeah.
With the biggest offender of her, you know, bopping Finn out of the way while Finn was trying to sacrificing himself, and she's like, "Love will save us." It's like, you idiot. Not that Finn's sacrifice would have done anything, but still, it's like, why did you do that? I
It
mean,
was such a bad line. And
yeah.
what's confusing to me is that, my understanding was that in The Force Awakens, it's obviously Finn is trying to escape. He is a coward. There's multiple situations he's in where he doesn't take the high road. But at the end, I mean, he's the one that grabs a lightsaber, even though he doesn't know how to fight like that, and is fighting Kylo Ren, and basically almost gets himself killed, right? Trying to save Rey. I mean, does that not show courage? I mean, I thought that this whole character arc for him was kind of solved, but then right when we start off the new movie, it's again him trying to escape, and then at the very end, he becomes brave and wants to sacrifice himself, just like he did in The Force Awakens. So I just feel like his arc repeated
Yeah, I
when he
could
should
see
have
that.
been able to take it to the next level. There should have been something else to solve for him.
Yeah, I mean, the only way you can get away with that, I guess, is that since this movie took place right after Last Jedi or Force Awakens, that he's still having doubts. But yeah, I don't know. I see what you're saying there. I mean, I guess it didn't bother me
Yeah.
that much, but um,
It wasn't too terrible. I mean, I thought it was funny that he's like getting onto the um, pod to escape, and
like
he's
Rose is like
shocked.
praising him, like, "You're the one who saved us." He's like, yeah, that's what I'm doing." He's like, "You're the biggest hero." I'm like, "Mm-hmm, that's me." Well, he's like, well, he's trying to like get rid of her so he can escape. And
Right. I mean, I thought that was pretty funny. That wasn't too bad. I'm fine with that part. So, what were some of the things that you liked about the movie? What?
well, I liked how it was. I liked how it broke conventions. I like how it took you places you didn't expect you were going to go. I like the allegory that this movie was literally about Star Wars fandom. That was kind of a neat thing to see, as well as kind of ballsy for a major franchise to sort of call out its fan base in not a bad way, but an interesting way. The action scenes overall are pretty good. I mean, on a technical level, it was done very well. The effects were good. Everything was tight and exciting. Again, my biggest issues were structural, like how the movie just kept going after it should have ended. Like it felt like it was way too long. I like Luke at the end, how he came back and I was like, "Sup guys," and he was taunting Kylo Ren. I thought that was well done. Did you see that surprise that Luke was never really there?
I did not notice that while watching it the first time, so it was a surprise to me. I did not like how he basically brushed his shoulder off. I thought
Oh,
that
really?
it was not something that would normally happen in Star Wars. It was a little bit too, I don't know, modern day convention. Something we would do as a joke. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It doesn't. Stuff like that doesn't take you to a galaxy far, far away. You know what I mean?
I guess that didn't bother me. But I see what you're saying. Not to sound smug, but I did realize like right away that Luke wasn't really there.
Nice.
Only because like they made a big deal like, this is red salt, and then had a shot where Luke was walking, and when he was walking, he wasn't kicking up anything. I'm like,
Well, they
wait a
also said
second.
that nobody could get in the base and there was no way in, and they kind of were like, well, how did he get in here?
Oh
You know?
yeah, I didn't think of it like that way, but I just saw him walking, and like everyone else was walking, there's red, and there's no red here. Either that's a huge mistake, or he's not really there. But it did make for a good reveal when Kylo like throws his lightsaber through him, and he realizes he's been duped.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting part. I like how they had all the guns, fire in the one location. He was still there, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's happened? But again, these new force powers just coming out of the middle of nowhere. I mean, to serve the plot. I mean, you could even said like, oh well, he force transported himself there. You know what I mean? Why can't the force allow him to just transport to different places and he physically be there? You know what I mean? Like it just seems like they're just making stuff up as they go along.
I will say this: the force projection was used in a tie-in novel early on in like the 90s,
Sure.
where which I know it's not the movies. I know it's something to tie in. There's a comic book which is actually not too bad that interestingly enough deals with the resurrected emperor called Dark Empire. It's
Mm.
made in 91, and in that Luke and friends are trying to escape, and when they're all on the ship, Luke's like, "All right, I'm not actually there with you guys, so I'll see you later," and he just like vanishes, realizing that who they've been dealing with was a force projection. I don't know if it was used in any other times, but at least there was some precedent for that, I guess.
Sure.
But I mean, you could be like, well, that's a comic. How many people have actually read that? Which is also a fine way to take it. But I don't know. I guess that stuff didn't bother me. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
maybe I'm looking at the movie in a different way, or I just don't care enough about Star Wars for that to bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I know some of the stuff that I liked was so it was very visually interesting.
Mm,
All the shots were very beautiful. I thought the movie had very good pacing, like it was able to kind of take its time. When Rey's on the island, she's walking around and following Luke, and I especially felt the pacing was even better after watching Rise of Skywalker, which just feels like a roller coaster from beginning to end without taking a breath.
Race to the finish.
Right, exactly. So I thought the pacing was really good. I thought the Snoke character and his dialogue and the way that his chambers looked and like all that was amazing.
Hmm.
Amazing. He was such a
Good
good
set design.
character. The dialogue was just, on point, and it was all good except for the very end where he was doing the whole, I can read his mind, and he's turning a lightsaber and he's turning it on. He's gonna strike true, and then he gets stabbed himself. I mean, that whole part was a little bit like, okay, now we're not in Snoke's character anymore. Now this is just Ryan Johnson writing, pretending he's Snoke. You know what I mean? Like, so that little part kind of bothered me. I thought the Force connection between Rey and Kylo was a great idea
Hmm.
because one of the problems with these movies is the interaction between the main good guy and the main villain is very interesting, but obviously if they're together they're going to fight, and how do you split them up to be able to continue this adventure of these two characters without one of them getting killed? So in The Force Awakens, they were able to meet a few times. There were different reasons why they escaped. At the end, the planet rips apart, and that splits them up, and that's a reason to escape. In this, we can have this Force connection and be able to have them talk to each other, without having to resort to a battle. So I thought those were great, and it's interesting that Snoke says he's the one that created that Force connection to trick Rey into coming, thinking that she's going to be able to change Kylo to the light side, and that's why she goes to Snoke's ship. But at the end, after Snoke has been killed, there still ends up being one final Force connection between the two. He's in that Soul planet. He's looking up into the Millennium Falcon, and she shuts the door on him. Did you notice that?
Yeah. My only guess is maybe Snoke created it, and then once you create it, you can't really disconnect. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of
Okay.
like, all right, I mean, he probably was thinking that one of the two of them were going to die. So,
Right.
who cares? But maybe it's one of those things like I don't know. You just you set it up and then you can't do anything with it after that. It's done.
I thought it would have been better if Rey would have been Leia's daughter, and Rey and Kylo would be kind of related a little bit, and that would make it easier to have that type of Force connection or something like that. I was fine though with Rey being nobody also. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that was a type of interesting, who's she going to be related to? Who's she going to be related to? It's
Oh
nobody.
yeah.
She just
I
was chosen by the Force, and anybody can be a Jedi, and anybody can have Force powers, and I like that. I thought I was fine with it.
Yes, yes, I 100%, 110% agree with you on that. The fact that Ray was not connecting to anyone, like I was getting so exhausted of the rumors that, oh, it's going to be Ben Kenobi's daughter, it's going to be this person. It's like, no, it's fine if she's no one. I did like the theory of her being a reincarnated Anakin, but that would have been all I would have wanted had they connected her to someone else. Having her be a nobody in this movie, um,
Yeah.
uh, was fine.
There were so the Canto Bite. I know you brought that up, and we said like that was an offshoot storyline that really was bogged down and kind of a waste in the end. Anyways, I have to say though that there were some interesting things about those scenes that I did like. I thought the look of the casino was amazing. I thought there were tons of aliens that looked really fascinating. They did such a good job that inside that scene felt very Star Wars to me.
Hmm.
I thought they did a great job. I thought there was this really long camera shot going through the whole thing, and then Finn comes into frame and he's looking around totally amazed, and he just wants to hang out and have fun. I thought that was a great shot. There was a drunk alien who was thinking that what's his name? B2? What's the robot?
BB-8.
BB-8. He thought he was like maybe some sort of casino machine and was putting coins into him. I
Yes.
thought that was very
Yes. That
funny.
was.
That's the type of humor that works well in Star Wars. That was perfect right there. And then he's rolling around. You can hear the change in him moving around, and he spits it out later. I mean, that was a little bit goofy, but I'm also okay with that.
Hmm.
That was all
That sort
funny.
of that fits BB-8's character.
Right.
BB-8 always been kind of like a not a goofy droid, but he was maybe funnier. Cause like in the Force Awakens, he gives like the thumbs up to Finn.
Oh, I
Um,
laughed so hard at that. I had to rewind it to show my wife. I'm like, just watch this for a second. This is so funny.
and I bet she was like, "What is this? Get me
Yeah.
away from here."
Yeah, she didn't think it was quite as funny. Um, I thought the Code Breaker's character was good. I thought like his stutter and his kind of sleaziness and why is he in this jail and then he just escapes and he talks about it's a machine and one company is creating the parts for both the Imperial and the Rebels, and I thought that was interesting. I thought he was a good character even though he really didn't amount to anything, so it was kind of a bit of a waste. I still thought he was a good character. I was very entertained by it. Some other humor that I liked is at the end when they're in those rickety ships that they found in the old abandoned Rebel base. Finn actually, no, it was no Poe. Poe actually puts his foot right through one of the ship, and he's like, "Oh my God, this ship's falling apart." And there were just some great quotes in the movie too, like when Ray says, "Something has always been there, and now it's awake," and she's afraid of it. Or when Kylo
Mm.
Ren's like, you have to let the past die, kill it if you have to. It's the only way to become who you truly are. I mean, there were just some great quotes, some great lines. So I just feel like the movie was just all over the place. There were parts that were just so good and brilliant, and good lines, good shots, and then there's other decisions that are just like, is the same person writing all of this movie, And I have to say too that what's interesting is that most of the other Star Wars movies are written by two people, at least, right? This movie was
Well, unless
only written by Ryan Johnson, only directed by Ryan Johnson. Nobody else was involved. And if you look at Ryan Johnson, what he's done in his career, I mean, it's very, there's not too much. I mean, I've seen Looper, and Looper was a good movie. But I really haven't seen any of his other movies. There's nothing like super notable that I know of. It seems so random for for Disney to hand both all the writing and all the directing to this one guy. Like, why didn't they have the previous writer of Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and The Force Awakens come back a fourth time, Lawrence Kasdan, and at least help in some capacity just to make sure that everything was tight and made sense, and maybe some of these issues could have been ironed out.
I don't know. I don't know the dealings behind the Disney thought process, but I have noticed that like for the last 10 to 15 years, these big franchises, they like to take an indie director who's done one or two notable indie type films, and they just throw him this huge franchise movie. All right, do it. And it almost never works out. I think Last Jedi was better than other things I've seen, but I've seen that they like to do that. Like Colin Trevorrow was given Jurassic World, and before that he really didn't do a whole lot of mainstream big movies. In 2000, going back even further, in 2008, the Bond movie Quantum of Solace was given to Mark Foster, who did more quieter, independent drama type things, and that movie was a bit of a disaster. And it's like I don't get the Hollywood mentality on that. I mean, it's cool that they're trying to give these smaller directors, bigger shots at a bigger movie, but like it's perplexing that that's that practice there. I don't know. It's probably why I don't work in Hollywood.
I mean, it's so strange. I mean, you go from J.J. Abrams, who's done, tons of movies, tons of TV shows. I mean, you can say what you want about him, about how he can create these mystery boxes and can't always answer the questions, which can be annoying. But he's proven himself. So, even he worked with Lauren Kasdan to write the last movie together, and then they just go from that, and it's not like they even had a plan of what was going to happen in the first, second, and third movie and said, here's the outline, write a story that fits this. It was literally, it just ends, and it was just handed off to this, kind of no-name director to write, this story, and then he isn't even going to direct the next one, so he doesn't even know where the third one's going and just hands it off to the next person like a baton in a race.
In some ways, that could be very interesting. It'd be a very interesting experiment to do. Had they followed through with that.
But Star Wars, this is not an experiment. If this was like an offshoot trilogy, or offshoot these side movies like Rogue One, Soul Story, it's one thing. But we're talking about the ending to a trilogy that's been going on since the 70s. I mean, you don't experiment with this,
Maybe. I'm just, in a general sense, I'm saying that would have been interesting had they committed fully to that. Well, we're going like super, super long here, so I think we should kind of wrap this up. Final thoughts as we wrap up here with the Last Jedi.
Yeah, I absolutely hated it at first. I've grown to really like the parts that I thought were genius. I still think that it is a flawed movie. But it is entertaining. The parts that are good. Do you do ratings usually out of 10 or?
You could do whatever you want. We are a open society here. So however you want to rate your movie, that's your decision.
All right. Well, I think I would give this movie maybe a B minus. That's what I'm gonna do. B minus.
My final thought on it was I don't think it's as bad as other people make it out to be. I think there are a lot of messy parts in this. I think it could have used one more pass through one more draft just to tighten things up and kind of cut the fat, as it were, or trim the fat. So, but beyond that, I thought the movie was a Star Wars movie. It was entertaining enough. I don't have any large desire to go back and rewatch it anytime soon. Yeah, so that's that. So, Rick, thanks for being on.
Hold on, now you got to give it a rating. Give it a rating. A letter rating.
You want me to give it a letter rating? Okay.
Yeah, I gave it a B minus, so you got to give yours now.
I give mine. Okay. I haven't done letter ratings in before, so let me. I don't know. Depending on my mood, somewhere between a B and a B minus, I guess. I'm going to give it a B. Because I think I liked it a little bit more than you. So we gotta adjust for grading drift. So
There you go.
I'll give it a B. I'll give it a B.
Good. Perfect.
Um,
Well, I
so
appreciate you having me on and talking about this. I feel like it's a therapy session almost, you know.
all right. I'm Nick,
Rick?
and this has been the All New Culture Cast, and we will see you next time. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast. We try to post new episodes every Monday evenings, 3 to 4 times a month. Check out our backlog. We could be found at allnewculturecast.libsyn.com. You can also find us on Apple iTunes and wherever else podcasts can be downloaded and listened to. This has been the All New Culture Cast, a Saltwater production. Original material copyright 2020. Thanks for listening. The best part, and I don't see why you wouldn't agree with this, of The Last Jedi clearly was Kylo Ren's abs. He has like an 8-pack.
Oh, well, maybe that could be a male crush for next time.